Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Talking Philly Sports with Matty B program here on the Edge of Philly Sports. With your boy Matty B here on this Monday night, October the 3rd, 2023. Uh, and I'm feeling a little bit better for those of you who care or know. I'm battling something, a little summer fall transitional type cold. Feeling a little bit better today. But it's great to be here. It's great to be here to kick off your Philadelphia sports week as I have the opportunity to do every week. And it's great to be back on Monday night. Been all over the dial over the last couple weeks, kind of filling in because of the Eagles' schedule, obviously. But it's great to be back on a Monday, a normal week, a normal heavy sports week here in the city. The Phillies, obviously, the big story, pushing their way into the playoffs for the second straight season, 16th time overall. They will start tomorrow night in about 24 hours. From this point, they'll kick off game one of the National League Wild Card Series against those Miami Marlins from Citizen Bank Park. Zach Wheeler will get the start for the Phillies as they will go for the next 13 wins, hopefully for that third World Championship. So we got the Eagles too, 34-31. What's up, Daniel? How you doing? 34-31 winners in overtime. But were they really winners? It's the question I have for everybody tonight. We will break this thing down. Kyle Quinn will not be available tonight, but I will break it down. He's given me his picks, predictions for next week. I'll break the game down with the Commanders, and then we'll talk briefly about the Rams because there's no rest for the weary as the Eagles will head out to the West Coast next week, back on their normal late Sunday time schedule. We had a rare 1 o'clock game on Sunday. Yesterday, beautiful day, by the way, for football. But they won 34-31 in overtime. But you wouldn't know it if you listened to the reactions around town. And I have a few reactions to a few points that I like to add into that. The Flyers are currently playing in their fourth preseason game, I think, out of 6. I think it's something like that. Tonight at home against the Boston Bruins as they continue to gear up towards the start of the regular season. I have some Flyers stuff to talk about tonight because one of the former members of the Philadelphia Flyers decided to kind of mouth off a little bit on a podcast, and I have the audio, and I like to play it for you and discuss it a little bit. Get your feedback on that as well. I found it very interesting. It wasn't necessarily a throw under the bus back over type statement that he made, but it was pretty telling, maybe pretty obvious too when it came to certain individuals on this team that are no longer here about their relationship with their head coach John Tortorella. So we'll get to that as well. But before we start, there is a little bit of housekeeping I have to do. Last night, again, I'll blame the fever, the sickness, being down with the sickness, so to speak. I was on the Fighting's final last night. I had the privilege to do the final post-game regular season show. And I erroneously reported a stat. And it's bothered me since I identified the problem, and I couldn't wait to get on here and rectify the problem. But I last night when I was doing the series at a glance against the Marlins, I reported the Phillies had gone 29 for 120 with runners in scoring position this season in the 13 games against the Marlins, and I reported that average as a 0.75 average. That's not correct. I must have fat fingered the calculator somewhere along the line, but it's not. It's not 0.75. It's actually 242. Which is a lot more respectable than 0.75. So I want to erase that and correct that here by saying I am sorry for reporting the wrong information. But the biggest thing, I guess, that really struck me about the situation was when I got the number 0, because typically when you pull up a number less than 100, you're going to be like, nah, man, that's not right. Let me redo these numbers. But because of the Phillies' inconsistencies with runners in scoring position, I actually believed it. I actually believed that was the number. So that was more telling than anything else. But no, it wasn't 0.75. It was 242. The Phillies had batted this season with runners in scoring position against the Marlins. So I apologize for that mistake. And I had the opportunity to rectify that. But let's get on with the program, shall we? And let's start, of course, with what we do here every week on the program, and that is your day in Philadelphia sports history. Now, I'm not going to say that October 3rd it didn't have any sexy things. It does. You know, it has a couple couple interesting things, but not really. I um I so really the biggest thing I could pull for October 3rd, or I'm sorry, October 2nd. I'm sorry, we're on today's the second. I'm all confused. Today the biggest thing I could pull for October 2nd was on this day, the Steagles. You guys remember the Steagles? The Eagle Pittsburgh Steeler combination. They had to combine because of World War II back in 43. There wasn't enough able bodied males because they were all out fighting the war. So the NFL had to kind of combine teams to keep the business going. And the Steagles debuted on this date, October 2nd, 1943. It was the combination Pittsburgh Steelers and the Philadelphia Eagles. They actually had a pretty decent season. They were 5-4-1 in their first season and only season, by the way, in operation. In the spring of 44, the Congress stopped drafting men 26 and older. So the NFL was able to kind of return back to business, and the Steagles were dissolved after just one season. But the actual Steagle or the Steelers didn't have the opportunity in 44 to go on their own. They had to combine with the Chicago Cardinals and became the Carpets as they were. I don't know. They were nicknamed and went 0-10 that year. So this is in your date in Philadelphia sports history. It's the advent or the conception of the Steagles, and they won the game today, 17-0, their first game ever. They beat the Brooklyn Dodgers, which were an actual football team. Yeah, yeah. It really had some issues picking names back then. So that is your moment in Philadelphia sports history, brought to you by the good people here at Talking Philly Sports with Matty B. So let's move on to the first topic. And why shouldn't I not start with the Eagles? 34-31 winners over the Washington Commanders down there at Lincoln Financial Field in overtime yesterday. There's a lot to unpack here. There's a lot for me to get into. Over the past 3 weeks, we've had an opportunity to watch this team and essentially make excuses for them week by week by week, and explain the Brian Johnson, the Sean Desai, their brand new coordinators. They're figuring things out, but the regressions of certain players, and Jalen Hurts is probably the biggest one. To me, is the biggest mystery of what's happened in 2023. And Kyle Quinn over the last few weeks has posed some interesting questions to that. And is it more towards preparation, or are coaches more preparing for the battle between the Eagles? Are they more attuned to what Jalen Hurts may bring to the game? Are they doing something different against them? Because obviously what they were doing against them last year wasn't working. There's a lot of definite things that you can kind of throw into the pot about why Jalen Hurts has somewhat regressed in 2023. And each week we've kind of seen Jalen sort of kind of make steps in the right direction, and they've won all their games. And that is the one thing that boggles my mind, that I'm very critical as well. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm above all this, as I'm as critical as the next guy is. But it's not been a good watch. These games have been very edge of your seat. These games have kind of come down to somewhat of a nail biting type situation. The Tampa game really wasn't that way. The Minnesota game wasn't really that way. But those two games really kind of hinged on on a play or two, right? They were a play or two away from being nail biter type games that went the Eagles' way. Whereas in the Patriots and in the Commanders game, the plays went the other way and became nail biters. So people like to say that the Tampa game was a blowout. Kind of. A couple of plays went the Eagles' way. But the Eagles have won these 4 games based on talent. I mean, let's face it. The Eagles are more talented than their first 4 opponents. A lot like they were doing in 2022, right? They were beating teams on talent. It was just back then we didn't realize how talented the Eagles were, or how untalented these other teams were. And the Eagles' schedule provided that pathway to a 14-win season based on the type of teams they were playing. The schedule's not set up that way in 2023. And now that we are a quarter through the season and moving on to teams like now the Rams, they've got the Jets, and I believe it's the Dolphins coming up over the next 3 weeks. Things are going to get a little bit more dicier because these teams got talent. Now, the Jets got talent and also have a quarterback. The Rams have talent, and of course, the Dolphins have talent. So these next 3 weeks are going to be very telling about where this team was or is. We talk of the Eagles more like a 2-2 team than a 4-0 team. And I think that's pretty obvious because there's issues with this team offensively with the play calling. There's offensively with the execution. There's problems with the defense and their play calling and their execution. And with the defense, there's some issues in that secondary. And it's glaringly obvious. And if you've got quarterbacks like Sam Howell and Baker Mayfield and Mac Jones exploiting the Eagles secondary, what's going to happen when you do run up against Pat Mahomes? What's going to happen when you do run up against Tua, Dak Prescott? What's going to happen when you run up against those types of quarterbacks? They're going to destroy they completely take the top off the Eagles secondary. And this is not a mystery. This problem with the Eagles secondary was identifiable heading into the season. 7 months ago, we knew there was issues in this secondary with the fact that they lost certain free agents and did not replace them. They've drafted their replacements. Sidney Brown's been hurt. We lost Maddox for the season. I get things happen. But there's not enough depth in that secondary, and they're getting exploited. And I'm not even talking about the Jobs and the Blankenchips of the world. I'm talking about the Darius Slays of the world. Darius got kind of taken to task by McLaurin yesterday. Taken to task. And never been a big play Slay guy. Never been a fan. And obviously, we ask him every week to cover the number one wide receiver of every team. He hasn't really done it all that well this year up to this point. So my concerns with this team are truly defensively driven. I think the offense, just based on their talent, will do enough to put this team in positions to win every week. But the defense, I've been calling on this thing all season long. It's the defense that concerns me. They got to Sam Howell 5 times yesterday. Heading into yesterday's game, Sam Howell had been sacked 19 times in 3 games. 19 times in 3 games. And the Eagles got to him 5 times, which actually is not that bad. It kind of balances out. That's a good number. But somehow Sam Howell found a way in some magical aura of being to go 29 for 41 with 290 yards and a touchdown. And really, I mean, let's face it, folks. The Commanders should have won that game. I think they should have won. I think Ron Rivera screwed up by not going for 2 at the end of the game for the win. I think they would have gotten it, honestly. But how does that happen? How does Sam Howell come up with a game like that? How does Mac Jones come up with a game like the way he had against the Eagles? So you can blame the play calling, and there is some issues there with the play calling. But the defensive depth is not there, and it's being tested with injuries. And the Eagles right now are having a problem responding to that test. And you can sit here and we like the laud. And again, I told you guys from the onset of the season I was going to leave my Howie hate at the door. I pretty much have done that through the first 4 games. But how can I when the glaring issues with this defense are starting to kind of crop up? And we're not going to have the luxury of coasting through a subpar schedule this year. Things are going to happen. Things need to happen where the Eagles need to figure out their secondary issues. As again, Darius Slay looked really taking the task. Job looked bad. I mean, they all looked bad as a unit yesterday. And a defensive unit that kind of feasted over the Buccaneers just looked really bad against Sam Howell-led Washington Commanders. So I don't know what the answer is, and Edge of Philly Sports is going to ask me, do the Eagles make a trade for secondary help? Why didn't they make this trade 7 months ago? And who are we trading with? And who are we trading for? Are we going to start now giving up our draft picks for some immediate help? Are we in the Jalen Ramsey type mode right now, a la the Rams a couple of years ago? Are we going to mortgage the future to acquire a top flight DB or cornerback or safety? Safety is probably what we really need. Is that what we're going to enter in now? I don't know. I don't necessarily agree with that. So I still believe you build the draft. But again, your GM, let's see what he does. See what kind of magic Howie has. He had the Linval Joseph and the Nagana Sue magic last year when the defensive line wasn't adequate to start the season. Now we have the same issue with the secondary. Does he have that kind of magic left in him? I don't know. It's a little harder to find quality DBs than it is to find quality defensive linemen. So more to follow on that. But as for the game, As for the game, again, Eagles 34-31 winners in overtime. Some stats, some individual stats on the day. Our Jalen Hurts, how did he do? 25 for 37, 319 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, but he was sacked 3 more times for 8 yards. DeAndre Swift, 14 carries, a pedestrian day for DeAndre. 14 carries, 56 yards, and a touchdown. AJ Brown, the big story of the day, both on, off, and in between the fields. 9 reception, 175 yards, 2 touchdowns. And my hands down player of the game. 7 catches for Devontae, 78 yards. But AJ Brown leading the way in both football and football related stuff. Let's go to that last drive at the end of the game. What, $150 left? Eagles go down the field surgically. Beautiful touchdown pass. Left about $1:30 on the clock. Then then AJ Brown throws the ball down or puts the ball down, gets a 15-yard taunting penalty, gives the Redskins a shorter field. Redskins then drive right back down the end of the field and use that 15 yards to score a touchdown at the end of the game. I asked Kyle Quinn this a couple weeks ago after the little dust up on the sidelines. Is AJ Brown developing into a TO sort of problem here? Is the man becoming bigger than the team? Do we have something like that? I'm not saying to the level of TO yet, but is it developing in that way? And his actions cost the team, almost cost the team a game. There was no need for a taunting penalty. There was still a million minutes left on the clock, and we're he's going to get pinned up with a taunting call. So the question I have, what's going on with AJ Brown? Do we have ourselves a TO situation? And I think that's an interesting question to be asked. Kyle told me no, he doesn't believe that we don't have a TO problem on our hands, and I don't know. I'm interested in that. I think that is a story worth listening to. Edge of Philly Sports says we have plenty of draft picks available. I think corner more. I don't know. I say safety, but again, are we entering into that Jalen Ramsey Rams mode of mortgaging the future for potential 1 Super Bowl run? Is that what we're into right now? I mean, we've done a good job, and I got to give Howie credit. He's acquired that capital, but are we going to now start burning it, for some instant gratification? That's a good question, though. But yeah, so AJ Brown, my player of the game, but definitely almost cost his team in the biggest ways at the biggest possible moment. So 34-31, Eagles with the win. Biggest takeaways for me is the defense, kind of night and day. I don't know how Sam Howell does it. I don't. I was on this show the other day saying you never trust a quarterback from the ACC. I stand by that. There's just no way he should have been able to do what he's done against the Eagles. The Eagles also committed 11 penalties for 80 yards. That was another gaffe there. One of the worst game all season long when it came to discipline. And the communication on the field just didn't seem to be there either. I cite the intentional grounding call there at the end of the game, where it initially moved the Eagles out of field goal position in overtime. They ended up getting back in, but that was a straight miscommunication between quarterback and wide receiver, and it was the right call, by the way. It was textbook intentional grounding. Jalen Hurts was avoiding a sack. He was inside the tackles, and the ball was uncatchable. There was no receiver anywhere near where he threw it. So again, that's on AJ Brown or than Jalen Hurts. But there's something there, and it's not right. Something is not clicking, and it's your head coach's responsibility to fix that. So 4-0, all's well that ends well, I guess, as the Eagles survive. Go 1-0 in the NFC East, go 4-0 overall, and now have to face the Rams coming up out west. Play-by-play with JJ says, I saw soft coverage in that game. I did too, JJ. Absolutely. And then he says the penalties are the fault, but dude, Terrell Edmonds, you can't have unnecessary roughness. You can't have unnecessary roughness. You can't have taunting. You can't have intentional grounding in that situation. You can't have any of it. 11 penalties for 80 yards. It's just unacceptable. Brad says, yo, what's up? I believe Phillies can go all the way. I do too, Brad, and we'll get into the Phillies here momentarily. I absolutely believe as well. Edmonds also should have had a pick in the end zone. He should have, could have, would have, but he didn't. We can also say that Justin Jefferson should have had a touchdown if he would have not fumbled it out the back of the end zone. So sometimes it goes our way, sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, 34-31. Brad says the referees made some bad calls. Man, Brad, don't go there. Don't go down that road with me, Brad. Please, man. Well, let's keep this civil. I am never one to blame the refs or the officials. They're part of the game. You have to adjust to that. Don't put yourself in a position to be in a position with them. All right. So, but I get it. Sometimes there's some bad calls. But again, it's part of the game. It's part of the game. Can you explain why they stopped using DeAndre Swift in the third quarter? No, I cannot. The guy had 28 carries one week. He had 16 carries the week after that, and then he goes down a little bit less than that, and then they stopped running all together. With a lead, by the way, with 21-17, and they went to a pass-heavy package. I don't get that. Again, there is some play calling issues. There's some scheme problems with this team. So, yeah, I can't explain why they stopped using DeAndre Swift in the third quarter, or they stopped running the ball entirely, really, in the third quarter. So, look, I'm happy with they won, but we can still criticize how they did. 100%, JJ. You're in a safe space here, brother. I absolutely believe that. Because let's face it. Again, I said this at the top of the show. 4-0, right? But we're talking. But in essence, they're 2-2, right? I mean, that's the kind of product they've put out on the field. But they've won those 4 games. So there's something to that. But the schedule now doesn't have we don't have that puffy, powder puff, cream puff 2022 schedule. We don't. We're now moving into a different phase of the schedule. The second quarter of the season begins on Sunday in LA. We got the Rams, the Jets, and the Dolphins, the next 3. The Eagles didn't have to run any kind of gauntlet like that at all last year. The only gauntlet the Eagles had to run last year was the Super Bowl, and they lost to that one and only elite team they played in 2022. They're going to be playing the Bills, the Chiefs, the Dolphins. They got some teams they got to go through this year. And if they expect to play like they have over the first 4 weeks, I don't know about that. So, no, you're absolutely right. Criticize away, JJ. You are safe here. Also, Matty B, that was me updating your graphics. So, no, I get it, man. You can come on now. Kyle's not here. I want you to jump on if you have a few minutes. We can run down finish running down the Commanders and jump on the Rams for a minute if you like. You're more than welcome. Brad says, I believe the Eagles can clean it up before they take on the Rams. Well, that's in the next 5 days. Really? They're going to clean it up in the next 5 days? We're going to get some secondary help, Brad, in the next 5 days? Who's that? Is Sidney Brown going to come back from his injury and then all of a sudden be blessed off the play? Don't forget, Cooper Kupp returns this week. Now, again, it's his first game back after an injury, hamstring injury. Could be a little bit limited, but still, do you trust Darius Slay against Cooper Kupp? No, I don't. So, we'll see. Can we also give Jake? Yeah. So far, he is my Eagles MVP of the season, Jake Elliott with his leg. Absolutely. Let's get him some flowers. Why would we give him flowers? He's a man. Why would we do that? Anyway, hey, Dave, what's going on? Nothing much. How are you today? And also, Morrow, talk about that guy that was cut and was on the mountain when he got. Yeah, so listen, here's the thing. Nick Morrow was cut, re-signed to the practice squad, and then elevated with the injury in Nakobe Dean. He has been a savior to the linebacking core. Nakobe Dean, who, let's face it, the verdict is still out because the guy can't stay on the field, or he couldn't get on the field. He gets on the field, now he can't stay on the field because he's dealing with an injury. Nick Morrow has come from the heavens, and you're absolutely 100% right, JJ. Nick Morrow, let's give a shout out to him. Without him, where would this linebacking core be? Absolutely 100%. From a guy that was signed, cut, practice squatted, elevated, now hero of the day. So you're right. You're absolutely right, JJ. A lot of shout outs to Nick Morrow and Howie Roseman for signing him. So, but yeah, what's going on, Nakobe Dean? We're all you Nakobe Dean lovers out there. who's it's a diamond in the rough. Yeah, well, there's a reason probably why he fell to 3 in the 3rd round. 3 sacks, 10 tackles, 1 forced fumble. Absolutely, he had himself a day. They don't win the game without Nick Morrow. 100%, they do not. All right, so let's turn the page. We got the Rams coming up. Again, the Eagles are completed their 1 p.m. scheduling, or at least for a little while. Now they're going to head out to the West Coast to battle the Los Angeles Rams, who are now 2-2. And right off the bat, Matt Stafford in the loss yesterday, kind of banged up his hip a little bit, and he's listed as questionable right now. But of course, I'm sorry, in the win yesterday, I apologize, they beat the Colts. But he got banged up, and he had, I don't know if he had to leave the game, but they're reporting him as questionable with a hip injury. So the Rams 2-2. The Eagles will be sporting their Wentz whites right now. They're reporting that they're going to wear their Wentz whites, and the Rams are going to go with their blue and white top, the blue tops with the white pants, as they do typically on all their home games. The weather out there in you're doing an awesome. I would like to come on your podcast talk about the Eagles. We'll talk, Brad. We'll talk. They're going to be doing the weather out in LA is 86 and partly cloudy, so no real issues with the weather in Los Angeles. As I mentioned, the injury report, it's kind of hard to kind of gauge the injury report on a Monday. But right now, the Rams are reporting Matt Stafford as questionable with that hip injury. Tyler Higbee is also being questioned. His status is questionable. K'Ron Williams is questionable. Matt Stafford is questionable. So yeah, and then of course they did lose their offensive tackle Alec Jackson is being listed as out right now. So again, very early, too early, really in the morning or in the week in the morning. But Jackson is he's a starting left tackle. He's being reported as being out with an injury right now. I guess he got hurt in yesterday's game. So we'll see how that kind of transpires along the week for the Eagles and the Rams as they get ready to do battle. For the Eagles, again, same old. We're dealing with the same kind of issues with our players. Let me head over to the thing here with the Eagles. Where is it? Live TV, everybody. The Eagles are reporting Cam Jurgens, who left the game with a foot injury yesterday, is listed as doubtful, but this is more from yesterday, I would imagine. Britton Covey is also questionable as he got that little. I think he got concussioned in late yesterday's game. Quez Watkins, Sidney Brown, Justin Evans, all listed as out. But again, this is mainly from last week. So no real changes with the injury report. The Alec Jackson injury could be something to keep an eye on as we move through the rest of the week. But it's pretty early in the week to kind of start gauging injuries. But right now, if we take a look at the Eagles and Rams, my 3 keys, or what I think is going to happen out there on Sunday, is this. We mentioned talent and the Eagles being better than most of their opponents up to this point. I think that check comes due on Sunday, and I think the Eagles are going to have to actually find themselves in a dogfight against a team that's, I'm not saying as talented as them. I think they're gonna have to find their way schematically to win a game. I've reported, or I've asked for this over the last few weeks about when it comes to my keys to victory, and that's getting the ball first and scoring a touchdown. The Eagles have yet to do that all season on their first offensive possession, and that's something that they did regularly in 2022. It sets that tone. I'm not necessarily saying that's the road to victory, but it sets a tone offensively, and the Eagles have yet to do that this year, and that's a concern. And that is, and I think that needs to happen this week. The Eagles need to play a clean game on Sunday. They cannot have 11 penalties, and they can't have miscommunication issues between quarterback, wide receiver, and anybody else. They got to play a clean game because talent right now on Sunday is not going to win the day over the Rams. They're going to have to actually play a football game. And I think that, honestly, the streak ends. I don't see them doing that. I think the Eagles get kind of smacked down to reality a little bit on Sunday. My 3 keys to victory, again, scoring that first offensive touchdown. That's my 3rd key to Eagles victory. My 2nd key to Eagles victory is we got to figure out the play call. Brian Johnson, Sean Desai, they need to figure themselves out. Second quarter of the season, people want to say those first 3 games of the preseason. Well, we're not in the preseason anymore, either one. So now it's time to play some football. You have enough tape. You have enough. You should have enough idea of what these players can do game wise. You got to find a way to get more aggressive. The Eagles they got to a very immobile quarterback in Sam Howell, and they sacked him 5 times. Matt Stafford is not Mr. Mobility, and he's pretty much concrete feet. There's a way to get to him. The Rams have a decent offensive line, but they have Cooper Kupp, and that's going to be a problem. So the Eagles got to find a way to get pressure and pressure the quarterback consistently. So the coordinators need to figure themselves out. And my number one key to Eagles victory, and I've said it all season long, it's Jalen friggin' Hurts. I need to see more from him. I've been seeing better from him, but I need to see more. I need to see that money that we paid Jalen Hurts. I need to see that 5-year contract money. I mean, I'm starting to get a little buyer's remorse, almost kind of Carson Wentz when it comes to his performance in his first year, or I guess next year will be the first year of his contract. So I need to see more, and I need to see the Jalen Hurts that we paid for. So those are my Eagles key. Those are my keys to Eagles victory. And with that being said, my prediction and score, I'm going to go 31-21 Rams. I do. I think they win the game, and I think my player of the game is going to be Cooper Kupp. I think he comes back. No, I'm sorry, Matt Stafford. I think Matt Stafford, 250, 3 touchdowns. And I think that the Rams kind of wake the Eagles up a little bit on the trip out to the West Coast. It's the first time I picked against the Eagles all season, but I'm going to stick with it. I say the Rams win 31-21. Now, for my broadcast partner, I usually at this point would be Kyle Quinn. He's not here, but he has chimed in, and he says 27-23 Rams, and Rams running back Puka as the player of the game. So me and Kyle both going Rams this week. And then just to kind of recap last week, me and Kyle both hit. We both took the Eagles to win. I came closest with my prediction and the score. My player of the game was, I think Devontae Smith. This was Jalen Hurts, and I think the consensus goes to A.J. Brown. So we'll see how me and Kyle do heading into next week. But right there you have our picks. I'm going with the Rams 31-21. Kyle's going with the Rams 27-23. So we both think this is the game where either it's a hardcore reality check, or it's I don't know, or it's Panic City. I don't know. Michael Arlo checks in. Let's go Phillies and let's go Birds. Hey, what's up, Mike? And the Rams don't have can makers because he got traded to the West. He did, and my fantasy team is suffering for that. This is a trap game, in my opinion. This is also a prove-it game for the Eagles' offense. Johnson needs to be on his A game. I want to see Hurts operating in the open field, but less established to run first. Yep, and there seems to be a concerted effort to keep Jalen Hurts in the pocket, and I don't like that. I mean, I don't like Jalen Hurts taking off and running on a drop of a dime, but he's more effective when he rolls out of that pocket. He just needs to learn how to stay in a pocket or in a pass mode, but a pocket passer he is not. So I hope we're not trying to turn Jalen Hurts into a pocket passer. I really do. I really don't. I really hope that's not what's happening there. I'm with you. I think striking first is absolutely huge, and don't take the 3. Let's get the running game going. Absolutely. And the Eagles have yet to do it this season. They have yet to score a touchdown on their first offensive possession through 4 games. So something to keep an eye on. Brad says 34-17 Eagles. Oh, Brad, man. Whew, I don't know about that. But there you have it. Mine and Kyle's picks. We both have the Rams this week, and we both think I guess the streak ends. I don't know if you want to call it a streak, but there you have it. There you have it, man. You heard it here first. Now, before we transition out of the NFL, I got to go back because I didn't do this last week because we were when I have these shows on like Thursdays, and I got to kind of backtrack because of Eagles games on Monday night. I kind of lose stuff in the shuffle. So I never reported on my week 4 of the NFL. So let me capture you guys back up on this. So heading into week 4 on my pick'em games, and of course I do every pick game of the week. Heading into week 4, I was 26-22. And so far for week 4, I'm 10-5. And then there's one more game to be played. Of course, it's happening probably right now as we speak. It's Seattle and the Giants. And I got the Seahawks in this game. So 26-22, 10-5 for the week right now. But now kind of getting a jump on week 5. Let me give you my week 5. Let me get to it here. It's tough going old school tablet here. But my week 5 picks are as follows. Again, I already said I'm taking the Rams 31-21. I like Washington over the Bears on Thursday night. I do. They showed me a lot on Sunday. Again, I don't think Sam Howell is a legitimate quarterback, but he showed me something, and so did Washington. I mean, that coaching staff is good. That's a good coaching staff. Ron Rivera, Del Rio, they're good NFL guys, and they took the Eagles coaching staff to the woodshed. The problem is talent. They just don't have enough. But I think they have enough talent, more talent than the Bears. So give me the Redskins on Thursday night. Sorry, the hell with it, the Redskins over the Bears. On Sunday, I like Buffalo all day long against Jacksonville. Give me Houston over Atlanta. CJ Stroud's making a believer out of me. Give me Detroit over Carolina, Indy over Tennessee, Miami over the Giants, New Orleans over the Patriots, Baltimore over Pittsburgh, Arizona over Cincinnati. What is going on in Cincinnati? The Jets over the Denver Broncos, KC over Minnesota, Sunday Night Football, 49ers in Dallas. Never, ever will pick the Cowboys. Give me the Niners. And then tomorrow or Monday night, Green Bay and the Raiders. Give me the Raiders. So there are my picks for week 5. You heard them here first. 26 and 22 without week 4's games being factored into it. The worst I can go for week 4 is 10 and 6, which is a lot better than what I was doing earlier in the season. I think it was 8 and 8 or something like that. But there you have it. 26 and 22 heading into week 5. Oh, thank you, JJ. I appreciate it, man. Thank you very much. All right, let's transition out of the Eagles and let's head into your Philadelphia Phillies, folks, because there's a couple things, 3 things I want to talk about. I want to talk about the Marlins, and I want to talk about the upcoming playoffs. But I also want to talk about Bryce Harper and the incident that occurred over the weekend with Angel Hernandez. And I definitely want to address this because I've been seeing a lot of, I think, misguided support. And I'm going to tell you what I mean. Here's my deal, folks. Angel Hernandez, I get what he is, all right? And the call, you all know what I'm talking about. It was the game, I believe, was Saturday. It was in the rain. No, wait, was it last week? It was a home game. It was against Pittsburgh. You all know what I'm talking about. Yeah, it was the last home game against the Pirates, right? Check swing called, the home plate umpire checked down the third base. Angel Hernandez called Harper that he swung, struck him out. Harper goes berserk, runs up the baseline, immediately gets thrown out. And then on the way off the field, he tosses his helmet up into the stands. And then today he gets fined $5,000 from Major League Baseball for throwing equipment. And then there's been some rallied support to Bryce Harper for justifying his actions. Why are we justifying the man's actions? Why? He broke the rules. You don't argue with the umpires. You don't throw your equipment. Now, he made a statement right after the game saying, I feel bad for the fans who can't afford to come and enjoy these games on a regular basis. And I couldn't stick around, for the rest of the game. So were you blaming the umpire for you getting thrown out? What have we reduced ourselves to as a society, folks? Bryce Harper should be accountable for Bryce friggin' Harper. I get it. It was a bad call. It was. It was not. He did not swing. Anybody could see that. But the umpire didn't see it. He's in charge, not Bryce friggin' Harper. And he called him out. And then Bryce Harper had his little, because it's Angel Hernandez and the stigmata and all that. And the argument happens and he gets tossed. Don't be, woe is me, the fans who can come out and what? Get the hell out of here, man. You knew what you were doing. You were being you. You're being selfish. You weren't thinking about the fans. You were thinking about you. So let's get some perspective, folks. All right? I get it. It was a bad call. But don't support Bryce Harper's actions. They were wrong. What is that showing our youth? It's okay to argue with the umpire and throw your equipment and then blame the umpire for your mistakes? It's not. Okay, I get it. The umpires need to be held to a standard as well. And they will be, and they are. People don't think they are, but they are. Every year they're evaluated. Every game they're evaluated. All right? But going up the line, yelling or arguing with the umpire, throwing your equipment, and then tossing negligently. Come on, did he pinpoint some kid out of the stands? If you wanted to give a kid his helmet, why didn't he just walk up there, hand it to the bat boy and say, hey, give this kid? No, he wanted to make a statement. Oh, look at me, I'm throwing my helmet. I'm not saying he was trying to hurt somebody, but come on. He was grandstanding. And he got penalized for it. So let's get some perspective, folks. Bryce Harper broke the rules, and he's blaming the umpire for him getting tossed out. Don't support that, because what is that telling our youth? That it's okay to do that? That it's okay to grandstand? It's okay to argue and get thrown out of a game and blame somebody else for your actions? What is that telling our youth, man? Bryce Harper's better than that. We're better than that as Phillies fans. So Angel Hernandez be damned. I get it. All right. I'm not an Angel Hernandez fan or supporter. I'm not. It was a bad call. But Bryce Harper needs to be held accountable too for his actions. So for those of you out there who want to like grant or rally to his cause, please look in the mirror and see what we're teaching our young athletes about how to handle situations when it comes to officials. Because there's a problem in this country, if you haven't noticed, when it comes to youth sports and officials. And what are we teaching our youth? That it's okay to do stuff like that? Bryce Harper's making $13 million a year. Little Johnny and Timmy aren't. But we're teaching them the lessons. So listen, again, I'm not backing Bryce Harper and his actions at all. Or Angel Hernandez and his actions. I'm not. It was a bad call. And he needs to be policed up. But I'm also not going to sit here and in support of Bryce Harper for doing what he did, because it was wrong. And then basically playing the martyr and the victim. Oh, woe is me. I got thrown out. The people that can't afford to come here couldn't come see me because I got thrown. Like it's their fault. No, it's your fault, Bryce. Why don't you apologize to the people out there and say, hey, I'm sorry. I acted up. I shouldn't have. I acted the fool and I got thrown out of a game and I apologize. Here's a refund for your tickets. Come on, man. We're better than that, Philadelphia. 100% better than that. People have been blaming other than their mistakes way before Bryce. I get that. I understand that. But this is the most recent situation. Take some meds and go to bed. Yeah, soon, I promise. But yeah. So I had to vent that because it's bothering me. It's bothering me that we're going to support the bad behavior from the umpire, which we should, but we're also going to support the bad behavior from the player. That's what it was. It was bad behavior. He got ejected. There's nothing glamorous about that. He got thrown out. What did that do for the team? Nothing. It hurt the team. But we're going to applaud it and try to justify it? No. You play through the adversity. Umpires are part of the game. Back the blue. But anyway, there's my Bryce Harper point. My other point, get off my soapbox. There's also been some complaining going on today in reference to the Marlins Mets game that was suspended due to I think it was rain the other night, and that the fact that the Marlins could not, or the Major League Baseball would not resume the play of the game. It was in the ninth inning. The Marlins were up 2-1, heading into the bottom of the ninth, and they decided to suspend the game and not resume it today. Why in the hell would Major League Baseball do that? Why would they resume a game that had absolutely nothing to do with playoffs, with seeding, with scheduling? All it would do is just play out the string. When it doesn't matter if the Marlins won or lost, they still are that number 2 wild card team. They were still locked into that spot. All it would do is potentially cause an injury to the Marlins for one inning or whatever. And if you look inside the Major League Baseball rules, or the OBR, the official baseball rules, you'll see very plain that after 5 innings, or after the home team has batted with the lead in the, or after the visiting team has batted trailing in the top of the 5th, or the home team has batted with the lead in the bottom of the 5th, that is an official baseball game. Any inning after that. And Major League Baseball, by rule, can call a game at any point at that point and make it a legit game. They can make it a legit game. It's in the rule book. There is the suspend games were basically brought into play to handle games that were in situations like wild card berths or a tiebreaker type situation games. That's all they were set up for. But the rules are very specific when it comes to suspended games. They're very specific, and it doesn't mean. So in this case, the Mets, who were due to bat in the bottom of the ninth, the Mets don't have to get their bottom of the ninth bat because they already got their bottom of the 5th bat. The game is already regulation. The game is already a legit game. It can end at any point after that, regardless if the Mets have batted or not. So either way, the game is legit. So That's a minor point, but there's been some squawking about that, and I just don't agree to that. So, on to the Phillies and Marlins as a series, which is going to start tomorrow night. Zach Wheeler will get to start, and he'll be opposed by Jesus Luzardo. Wheeler, of course, a fine season. Not dominant, not Cy Youngish, but a fine season for our ace. Uh, Obviously gets to start as the number one. He'll be faced with trying to, I think it's imperative the Phillies get off to the right start tomorrow night against the Marlins. They need to come out in game one and they need to win. And I've said this all week long. Aaron Nola, Kyle Schwarber really are the keys to me for Eagle victory, Phillies victory this postseason. I really think those individuals, if they can play, if they can put away their inconsistencies or put aside their inconsistencies that plagued them through 2023 and be more consistent, I think we're going to go far. They cannot, especially with Nola's concern. I'm not really certain we're going to get out of the first round. But it'll start tomorrow. And again, I talked about this yesterday on the final, a series in the glance. The Phillies were 6-7 this year. Phillies hit 15 home runs off Marlins pitching. They gave up 18. They struck out 162 Marlins. They struck out 121 times against the Marlins. They were 29 for 120, 242 with runners in scoring position batting average. And they scored 64 runs against 55 runs. So, they were 6-7. I get that, but the Phillies are a better team than the Marlins. But the Marlins are that up and coming Phillies story of 2022 or 2023. So the Phillies, as defending NL champs, put them down, take them to task, do what they got to do. And tomorrow night it'll all start. And we got you covered here on the Edge of Philly Sports. We will have the Fightins final. It'll be two of us. That's right. You're going to get double the fun of EOP or Fightins final hosts. Me and Big Al get you for game one. So we'll be coming at you after game one, me and Big Al, hopefully talking some Phillies victory. And we're going to go from there. So looking forward to a great series. I think the Phillies win it in 2. I do. I think the Phillies sweep it. And I think that they set up a Phillies Dodgers. Or I'm sorry, Phillies Braves second round, and then Phillies Dodgers third round. And I'm looking at a rematch of the 2022. What's his face? Phillies Astros in the World Series. So yeah, that's how I'm seeing it, and hopefully it comes to fruition. But it all will get start. It will all start here tomorrow night. I sent the graphic, so use it. What graphic? You talking about, man? See no graphic. Oh wait, there it is, right there. There's the lineup right there. I think that's what he's talking about. And there you go. And then here's the Fightins final. There you go. Look at that. Look at them handsome gentlemen right there. Game 1, me and Al. Game 2, Pat and Mike. And then game 3, Al and Mike. So there you go. Gotcha. I used it. All right. Leave me alone. All right. I used it. So there you go. All right. All right. So moving on to my final point. I had this keyed up for the last show, but I didn't get a chance to do it. I'm going to do it here. I'm probably going to get yelled at for this, but I don't care. I want you guys to hear it. I was able to segregate the audio from this podcast. So I don't know if you guys have ever heard of so what better way than to beat 2 overrated postseason teams? Yeah, I guess he's referring to the Dodgers and Braves. I don't know, man. I hear what you're saying, Mike, but every year is different. Let's take it one step at a time, baby. It's the Marlins. Game 1 tomorrow. Anyway, moving on to the Flyers. I pulled this audio from a podcast from September 20th, and I wanted you guys to hear it. It's about 12 minutes. It's a little long, but I think it's worth the listen to. It's Kevin Hayes, former Flyer Kevin Hayes. And he's talking with Cam and Strick. This is the Cam and Strick podcast. I'll give him a free plug. Cam Jansen, who's a former NHL player, and what's the guy's name? The guy's name is something Strickland. Andy Strickland. He's an NHL insider guy. Anyway, they do a pretty decent podcast about hockey. And they had Kevin Hayes on September 20th. And Kevin spoke candidly about his time in Philadelphia and spoke candidly about his relationship with John Tortorella. And some other players were brought up in the conversation, Ivan Provorov and Tony DeLangelo. Of course, the 3 players that were jettisoned by John Tortorella and the Flyers. And I wanted you guys to hear it because I thought it's very interesting. And as I said, I segregated the audio. It's pretty good. It's maybe a little grainy, so just bear with me. I want you to hear it, and then we'll talk about it when we come back. So here's Kevin Hayes on the Cam and Strick podcast.
Torts. Torts. We had a fine relationship off the ice. You know, media is write these stories that Torts and Hayes don't like each other, just bad blood. We see hockey differently. I don't think he loved my game. I don't think it fit into what he was trying to build there. Away from the rink, he's a good guy. He's asked about my family. He asked to see pictures. No, he didn't. No, not yet. Not yet. But yeah, at the rink, we just didn't see eye to eye. I'm not going to sit here and say I agree with everything he did last year. Yeah. I thought I was having a great year. I was playing about 11 minutes a night, 20 games in the rest of the season. I don't think he liked my game. Why? Why do you like your game? I just don't think he wants more of like fighting, hitting. You're back checking, you're doing things you're penalty killing. I'm trying to. Yeah, I mean, my whole career in the NHL, I've been on the penalty kill until Torts came. Dominating shorties too. 1 year, I think I led the league in penalties. You led the world. I think I led the NHL in short-handed goals, but then a year later, not good enough for the PK, so. Claude Giroux and Jay Voracek used to always tell me the most fun I have during the games when I see you go on the ice for a penalty kill. They're like, the stuff you do out there is just not okay, but it works. Why do you think that is with him, though? Because it seems like coaches do this a lot. Yeah. Are you too much of a big personality? Did you own the locker room too much? That's kind of... I think that had something to do with it. I think he thought that I was, like, downplaying what he promoted. But it's crazy if you ask guys in the team, even when I wasn't agreeing or disliked everything he was doing, I was telling all the young kids, believe in what he's doing. He's a good coach. Believe it. Buy into it. If you don't agree with it, bury your head, work hard. I was kind of promoting him, but I think he kind of, because even like Tony D'Angelo, same way. He kind of thought that we were going against everything he was yelling at the team for, but it was the opposite. Even when it pained me to say some of the things, I'm like, no, just buy into what he's doing. It works. I'm telling you. Remember, like you said, he played on different teams that you have like a faction over here, and then they're chirping this faction, so he's probably like looking at you like, are you with me? Yeah, and he's a big like, commotion's probably the wrong word, but like conflict. Yeah, he likes conflict, right? He likes to just air out whatever he's thinking, and I'm not like that. I'm a player. You're a coach. If you tell me to do something, I'm going to do it. I think he wanted more of like fiery attitude towards him. Yeah, he scratched me, right? Yeah, I was up over a point a game, leading our team in points, and I got scratched. And you go to the All-Star game like a few weeks later. Yeah. And he benched you in the third period. Yeah, that was early before you got scratched, right? Yeah. And he benched himself. Yeah. And here in St. Louis, he was like, I'm in the press box. Yeah, I know. And, and then I think he kind of wanted me to like go in and challenge him, and it never really happened. From the media standpoint, it looked like we had a horrible relationship. I don't think you need to be friends with the coach. I do think you need to respect the coach, and I do think the coaches need an outlet from players, so the coach doesn't come in the locker room every time and yell at everyone. They can kind of tell a player, like, hey, yeah. Like, and I thought I was going to be that guy, and I just don't think he visualized it like that. I knew I was going. I thought I was going to be going to the deadline. So what's it like being a veteran guy with an organization that brings in a personality like him, and they're looking to kind of rebuild the entire. I mean, you knew they were bringing in probably a new GM, right? Yeah. I mean, they got a new president now. I mean, it's like a complete revamped organization. It was ups and downs because we were supposed to be horrible. We ended up being horrible. But at the beginning of the year, we were like 7-1. I remember that. And people were like, "What's going on here?" And the Torts effect side was working big time. We were hard working, dump and chase, hit, fight. We had guys fighting every night. And then once I kind of saw the writing on the wall, I tried to be the best teammate as possibly could. I knew I wasn't going to play good minutes. I knew I wasn't. I was on the second power play, no PK. I wasn't okay with it, but I wasn't going to shit on guys or shit on the coach for it. So, but I knew pretty early. Yeah, there was a meeting early on around Christmas where he said stuff in front of the team, and I was like, oh, well, my time here is done. You knew it right away. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, right away. Yeah. And the players knew it, too. And it was weird because I am a locker room guy, and my voice just went to shit. Like, after the meeting, I was like, how do you expect me to hold other people accountable when you just did that? Shit on me. You know, they rave about you. That's why part of the reason why they're bringing you here. Yeah. I want big time on that. How was Tony D'Angelo? Great. And again, we've had him on. Yeah. We had an awesome interview with him. Yeah. And why is he like always like the guy that gets the bad? I think he is very outspoken. He wears his heart on his sleeve. Some people look at that as a bad image. He holds himself accountable to a standard that he thinks he needs to accomplish, and he's an unbelievable teammate, super loyal, will fight anyone. He has that like Philly jersey mentality, and he's nasty. So it should be a good combination. Good player. Yeah, like he set records in Carolina. He had a good final year in New York before the final year. But yeah, I mean, he's an unbelievable guy, super loyal, and he's a good hockey player. He might be a little too outspoken sometimes, which gets him a bad rep. Media, even in the locker room sometimes. But to me, he can play on my team any day of the week. You know this, like in hockey, like there's not too many guys like him. No, who come from that background, that area, that type of upbringing, and it's almost like maybe it's hard for guys to get to know him or understand him. Is that a fair? Yeah, no. I talk to Tony pretty much every day. I'm in a group chat with him. He's Trocheck, Brady Shea, Chatty. And it goes. Hey, what about Ivan Provanov? He's a Russian American. He's been living here for a long time. Workhorse. When I got to Philly, I thought this guy was unbelievable. But again, I don't think Torts loved his game. I think he'll be great in Columbus. But he took a beating pretty good. Oh yeah. Yeah. But he stuck out for him, man. Like, you know, like it's like the media too. I know. Holy fuck. It's crazy. If you play in a media city, that head guy that runs the media, if he has a bad lookout on you, the fans agree with him. I know. Yeah. Scary. Like controls it. Scary sometimes. But that's every big city, right? Every big sports city. Like, doesn't even have to be a big city, you know. Like the fans get you. They're gonna get you. The fans follow one media person, and that media person shits on you. The fans are gonna believe everything they read. I think Broly's a great player. He's gonna be fine. Good dude. Yeah, good locker room guy and stuff like that. Quiet. Yeah, quiet guy. Quiet, sticks to himself, works hard, does every possible thing he can for his game, and holds himself to a really high standard. He took a lot of heat. He took a beating. He'll be fine in Columbus. He'll step right in. He'll be one of their better defensemen. Yeah, he'll play 28 minutes a night. What's the whole situation before you got traded? Like, it was kind of crazy because it was. Like, the rumor was going on for several days. Yeah, that you were coming to St. Louis long before the trade ever happened. Yeah, you had the situation going on with other players, no trade clauses and all that. Man, you're just kind of hanging in the weeds. Yeah, it was weird. Like I said, I knew I was gone. Mm-hmm. There wasn't a situation where I was back in Philly, but then there became a situation where I was like, oh my God, I might be back in Philly. Oh, no. How do you go back? Fucking horrible. But like, not even because I didn't want to play there. Like they got Danny B and Jonesy now. Unbelievable. Yeah. Like people running the ship. But I remember when trades started coming out, St. Louis wasn't really one of the first teams that I was hearing these rumors about. And I try to stay out of it. My agent does all that stuff. I went on a pre-honeymoon because we didn't have enough time after this wedding. So we were in Italy And I remember my agent called me. He was like, "Call when you have a sec." I called him. He's like, "St. Louis has entered the picture. It might happen today." So I'm in Italy. I'm like, "Oh, like this is kind of cool. Might get traded today. Have a little celebration in Italy." Um, the whole trip, nothing went dead quiet. So I get back, and you obviously hear these rumors, right? So like, I'm like, "Oh, you might get traded here. You might get traded to Boston. You might get traded to Nashville." So I start reaching out to guys in the team, being like, "Hey, are you hearing anything?" Right? And then you kind of picture like, okay, if I get traded here, this guy's going to be gone. So then you're like, if I see this guy, I'm going to ask him, hey, did you get traded? And then the rumor came out about Torrey. And I've known Torrey since I've been 10 years old. And I was like, Torrey, like, what's going on with you? And they're like, yeah, like, this is what happened. I don't think I'm going to wave. Really, like, don't go there. Yeah. Yeah. So I kind of had Torrey on my side there, kind of getting the ins and outs of what was happening. And the day before it was supposed to happen, it never did. So I'm like, all right, well, this isn't gonna happen. Like, if he's not waving, I'm not gonna get traded. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna go golf. Went golfing, and I was like, I told like 3 guys, my buddies from home, I'm like, I'm sorry, but I need to leave my phone on loud, like just in case. And my family group chat was going off. Like my 9-year-old, my 9-year-old niece, soccer. Oh yeah. So I'm like, fuck this. Turn off my sound. I'm like, this is whatever. Literally, within that 4 minutes, I hit like 2 balls, driver, next shot, go back. I'm like, I'll look at my phone. Missed call from my agent, missed call from my dad, missed calls from Danny B. And I'm like, I think I just got traded. Yeah. So I called Danny B. And he's like, traded you to St. Louis. I think Army's going to reach out to you. As soon as I hung up, 2 minutes later, Armstrong called. Super excited to have me. This is where we see you. This is what we want you to do. We need you in the locker room.
All right, so that was Kevin Hayes. A little lengthy. I appreciate your patience with me. It was about 12 minutes, but let's kind of unpack some of that. You know, first and foremost, he mentions how much of a locker room guy he was, and that how he was basically tramped down by the coach after the coach wanted him to be more of a in your face type of guy. Now, to me, and I'm coming off this the wrong way, but to me, that sounds like John Tortorella was looking for a leader on this leaderless team. The Flyers didn't have a captain last year, and they don't have a captain so far this year. And I think that he was turning to players like Kevin Hayes, and he mentions Ivan Provorov and Tony Delangelo, 3 notable players who did not get along with John Tortorella, possibly to be those leaders. And neither one of them individuals wanted to step up and be a leader because they didn't want to sacrifice parts of their game in order to take on the burden of leadership. That's what it sounds like to me. And that might be correct. It might be wrong. So for Kevin Hayes to kind of speak out of both sides of his mouth, which he kind of does throughout a lot of that interview by saying, I'm a locker room guy, but yet I'm not confrontational. If you're the coach, I'm the player. You tell me what to do, I do it. That's speaking out of both sides of your mouth because he was looking for a leader. The team was leaderless. The team is leaderless. The team's been leaderless for years. Throughout the Claude Giroux era, Claude Giroux was a horrible, horrible captain. He wasn't a leader, and he was looking for a leader. The team had no accountability. The team had a cancerous locker room. The team had a player first mentality, and they were looking for leaders. Now, it's been very well documented about Ivan Provorov, and maybe the expectations that this fan base had for him were unrealistic because he was never the player that we thought he was going to be. He's a very good player, but we were looking for a chemo team and in / Eric Desjardins hybrid, and that wasn't Ivan Provorov. So and again, if you're being asked to do certain things by a coach after doing basically what you want to do for your entire career, yeah, you get a little bit of, I guess you get a little, your nose out of joint a little bit. So, but for Kevin Hayes to say, I'm a locker room guy, I'm a player guy, and I supported the coach even though I didn't agree with him, I disagree with that. I don't think it was that cut and dry. I think he did shut down. He mentions the meeting they had at Christmas time where he essentially realized at that point that he was not part of the future. I think at that point is when he shut down on the Flyers. I really do. And then his being benched was pretty much the product of that, and he became a cancer in that locker room. And then to a certain extent, I agree that Ivan Provorov and Tony DeLangelo, who again I like Tony DeLangelo, I think he's a good player, but they were not sort of kind of in that mold. And so Kevin Hayes, and who the hell is Kevin Hayes? What has Kevin Hayes ever brought to this city on the ice? We didn't win shit with Kevin Hayes. So for him to sit up there and kind of go self-righteous, like, I was the great savior and John Tortorella was asking me to do things that I no, I'm not doing those things. Tortorella was looking for a leader, and you were just a follower. You were just a self-serving athlete who was concerned about himself and about his game and about the effect of his game when called on to take on a leadership role and what that would do to your game. So to Kevin Hayes, to Ivan Provorov, and to a certain extent, Tony DeLangelo, good luck in your new cities. And to the Flyers of today, when we face Kevin Hayes, Ivan Provorov, and Tony DeLangelo, somebody put them on their ass. Somebody show them what the new year of orange is, and somebody show them what a leader is. So I really wanted, and that goes courtesy of the Cam and Strick podcast. You can catch anywhere you check out your podcast. But I wanted to play that because I found that very interesting. Kevin Hayes trashing, but not trashing at the same time. The Philadelphia Flyers, John Tortorella, and not Danny Briere and Keith Jones, though. He was very supportive of those two. So that was very interesting. Let's go ahead and pay some bills. I brought this up earlier in error, so I'll bring it up in correctness now. This is our schedule here on the network this week. Some shows have been moved around in order to kind of fit into the Phillies playoff schedule. You listen into the earlier. You had the Killing Me Smalls, Chalk Talk. Oh, I'm sorry, and me, and then Party on Broad. Tomorrow, you got the Kelly Green Hour, the Birds of the Round Table, and then the Fighting's Final, Game 1, Phillies Marlins. So make sure you're checking out that and everything else that EOP has to offer for the rest of this week. It is our playoff week, so everybody stay tuned for a bumpy ride. For workman's compensation, motor vehicle accidents, personal injury, criminal law, Dave Cherry, 610-565-0300 is the man you want to call. And if you're still looking for those tickets to the National League Wild Card Series, look no further than Cherry's Ticket Town. Great prices, no hidden fees, sports concerts theater, www.sherrystickets.com, family owned and operated. Save an additional 10% when you enter that promo code EOP10. And if you're looking for a place to watch the second round of the playoffs, and if you can't for some reason get tickets, head on down to Dolan's and check out the games at Dolan's Bar at 24 East Sellers Ave in Ridley Park. Quizzo music, great times, minimally giveaways. You never know who might walk through the front door. And Philly Sports Trips, they got you covered. They're heading out to LA. So I'm pretty certain that one's sold out, but it doesn't matter. Head over to phillysportstrip.com and check out all they have to offer going forward. Eagles 34-31 winners in overtime, but some things got to change. The depth of this defense is being tested. The personnel of this defense is being tested. And right now, I'm not certain that the Eagles are going to pass the test. The second half of the schedule, or the second quarter, I should say, of the schedule is going to kick in on Sunday against the Rams. I got the Eagles losing this week, 31-21 to the Rams. My Birds breakdown with Kyle Quinn, cohort Kyle Quinn, also has the Birds losing. Phillies, this is it. It's time. We've waited a year for this. We've waited a year to get back in the playoffs. Game 1 tomorrow night, Phillies Fish. Doesn't matter if it's the Marlins. I get it. It's not the matchup I wanted either, but it's going to be the Marlins. Jesus Luzardo against Zach Wheeler is your pitching matchup for tomorrow, Game 1, 8 o'clock. And the Flyers are at it right now, steaming through their preseason. Kevin Hayes spouting off about how he was basically told he wasn't good enough after so many years being told that he was. Well, you know what, Kevin? They were looking for a leader, and you were absolutely not it, and now you're not here. So busy night here on the show. I want to thank everybody for chiming in. I want to thank Kyle Quinn for chiming in, even though he couldn't be here tonight, obviously. But next week he'll definitely be back, and we will be back here on the show. Hopefully, I'm feeling better. Boy, I got something right now. I cannot seem to shake it. Don't forget, we got you covered for the Phillies this week. Tomorrow night, Game 1's Fighting's Final, me and Al. Game 2's Fighting's Final, Pat and Mike, and then Game 3, if necessary, on Thursday, Al and Mike will take you on the Fighting's Final. Until we talk again later, folks, that's the news. And I'm going to bed, and I'm out of here.